So, all right, well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about In a Violent Nature. I mean, that movie just came out. It's a all over everything right now, social media. I think I speak for everyone when I say that you stole the show and were the highlight acting wise. Despite not being introduced till to the final act. Spoiler alert. But how did that role? How did that role come to be? How was the experience working on the movie? Tell us about it.
I was very fortunate. It sort of fell into my lap in a way. They had been in talks with another actress, and that kind of fell through. And they asked my rep, they said, "Tell us what Lauren's been up to." And she said, "Well, she was on a soap opera for many years, so she knows how to memorize lines like that. She can memorize long stretches of dialogue, which was, obviously it was like a 13-minute, basically a monologue. And when she told me that she told Chris Nash that, the director, I said, Stacey, that was like 30 years ago. I said, I'm in my 60s now. I said, my brain is like, fried. I'm like, one of the Rolling Stones with my brain at this point, although they
Oh,
remember their
please.
lyrics. Um, so I had a meeting on Zoom with the director, Chris Nash, and one of the producers, and I did a cold reading because, I didn't see a script or anything like that. I did a cold reading. He said they sent me the full script. I read it, the whole thing, and I was like, wow, that's cool. So we did another Zoom meeting, and in that meeting, I said to him, because he offered me the role, and I was like, cool, excellent. When are we going to do this? And he's like, oh, in a couple of weeks. I'm like, so I said, are you going to have cue cards on the hood of the truck when I'm driving? And he said, no. And I said, oh, okay. Lucky for my brain, because it had snowed and the weather in northwestern Canada was getting really wonky, they had to postpone my scene by a couple of more weeks. So I had like 4 weeks to memorize all that. And I was like, the gods were with me when this happened. So that's pretty much how that happened. And I thought it was in Toronto. It turns out that it was like above Wisconsin or above Milwaukee. I don't know, someplace out there. It was way west. It took me like 2.5 days to drive there.
Oh
Okay,
my
it was
gosh.
Wow.
crazy.
Wow.
This
That is,
little area called Sault Ste. Marie, and so anyway, so that's how I got the part. Yeah, basically.
okay. So I've got a follow up question that's, it's kind of off the wall. So the final scene when you do arrive, like Brian said, you stole the show. You're the highlight. You're the class of the acting actors in the movie. Um,
Thank
what
you.
happened? Did Johnny catch you? Did he show up?
Well, that's the funny thing. I mean, Andrea Pavlovic, she's really good. She has such a beautiful aura about her, and I just really enjoyed her a lot. And she's the only one that I really worked with. I mean, Rye I met, afterward, and I really enjoyed his presence. It reminded me, well, I don't want to say it reminded me of CJ Graham because it's more complicated, his role, than CJ's role. There's more backstory for him to work with.
Right.
Um, but so yeah, yeah, I mean everybody was like, "Oh God, she's getting out of the truck. Oh no, she's gonna get it. Oh no." Spoiler alert, I'm not gonna say anything, so don't worry everybody. But there were a couple of things that Chris Nash and I threw around when we were done filming because it was the last day of filming. So we
Right.
threw some ideas around. I was like, wouldn't it be cool if she was like Johnny's aunt, and she's
Yeah.
like picking up this girl and bringing her back to his lair,
Yeah.
or maybe it's Vicky because she didn't have a name. She's just called a woman and Vicky's still alive, and like the horror universe would go crazy over. So it was yeah, it was kind of funny because as I was reading the script, I'm thinking, oh crap, I'm gonna get whacked again. And I'm not gonna say what happened to anybody who hasn't seen it, but that was my thought. I was like, can I just once be a final girl? I mean, I even died on the soap opera. It's like, somebody please let me live.
It's funny you mentioned that because that's definitely part of the tension I think that's built into that scene. Is I was like, I don't know, something's I don't trust this woman. I don't trust this woman. So she's gonna turn.
Well, I will say I did play it a little bit more edgy the first day of shooting. And Chris Nash basically said to me, this woman is not from New York. You can't be so threatening or, so loud. He said, pull it back. You've lived out here, probably in a ramshackle old house. And I'm like, well, I live in a ramshackle old stone house. So he says, just pull it back, speak slower. She's not from New York. Speak more slowly and take your time with it. This is something that this type of animal violence is something that you're used to. This is a woman who's got, her own rifle and hunts. You got to think of it that way. And I was glad because the first day when we filmed it, the truck was on a flatbed, so I wasn't actually driving. And when they listened to it and watched it that night after Nash spoke to me about the character and all that, he watched what we had done, that afternoon. And when we went back the next day, the next morning, he said to me, he goes, Lauren, I hate to tell you this, but yesterday we can't use anything because the truck was too noisy. That the truck that your truck was on was too noisy. And I just went, oh. And he goes, he's kind of tiptoeing around it a little bit. He's saying, well, he's kicking the shit around a little bit. And he's going, I was wondering, would you be okay? If I have to run through your rep, I will. Would you be okay driving? I was like, yeah, I can drive. I had a Toyota 4Runner. I can drive. And he goes, with the camera on the hood. And I said, being the actress that I am, I went, yeah, sure, no problem. So we shot it. So, and it's funny because a lot of people, in the universe, in the horror community, they're sending me messages on Instagram. They're like, how did they make it look like you were really driving? And another friend of mine in LA, she sent me a text. She goes, oh my God, Lauren, you did such a good job of making it look like you were driving. And I'm like, my dudes, I was driving. So when you see me having my side eye on the road the whole time, it was an active back road. So we had to reshoot a couple of scenes because a car would be coming from the other direction, or somebody be behind me like honking their horn, like, come on, go at least 45, and then they pass it and they're like, oh, she's an old chick, she doesn't know what she's doing. So, I was like ready for my, what do you call it, AARP card.
Oh my God.
Take this chick's driver's license away. She can't see. So anyway, so that's a little oddball story about that scene. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Hey, fun fact, I'm an AARP member. You can get discounts with AT&T if you got your AARP card.
Oh, you can? I'm going to have to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I got it. I think, Ms. Lauren, we have a few follow-up questions within A Violent Nature. I was really excited to see that movie just because of the unique concept. I just want to ask, my first follow-up is, you're obviously known as Vicky from Friday the 13th Part 2 all the way back in 81, and now it's 2024. You're in another slasher movie. What was the difference on set between the two films?
Oh my gosh. They were very similar, actually, because he shot it bare bones, because it was an independent film. It didn't have a huge budget like they have
Right.
now. You don't have a budget on this and the crew and everything like you would have on the Conjuring series, which I just rewatched. You just don't have that. You have, a makeup artist. And of course, I wasn't wearing makeup in the movie, so I didn't have that luxury, but there was a makeup artist there. You have a wardrobe person, your producers, your director, your AD, your cinematographer. There aren't like tons of people to just come behind you and brush, dog hair off of you, or, fluff your hair out and things like that. Um, Movies now, because I'm my other border collie, he does TV and movies. There are hundreds of people behind the scenes, and I'm like, why do you need all these people? So in A Violent Nature and Girls Night Out even, and Friday the 13th Part 2, they were more alike than some of the big budget like Immaculate, or something else, one of the big movies now, even Scream movies. I'm sure they've got hundreds of people on the crew behind the scenes because they've got bazillion-dollar budgets. We're coming in old school 80s. I mean, the cameras that he used, obviously, it's not the big Panavision things, with the film inside, it's not like that. So that's definitely different. Let me think. There's no gigantic boom overhead. We're all wearing body mics.
Okay.
And the car was all mic'd up. Whereas back in the 80s, you had this gigantic boom,
Right.
and they'd be like, oh, we have to do that scene again. There was a boom shadow across your face. And you think, oh, okay. So you always were aware of this big thing that looks like a giant Swiffer duster above your head. Now they've got all those cute little things that you don't see, those microphones that you don't see. So those are big differences. But because my other dog works on TV and film, as did the dog before him,
Right.
I've been aware of that switch over. But the amount of people was, to me, is just mind-boggling. The differences. Yeah. I hope
I
that
just
answers
have
the
one
question.
more quick follow up, and you can go into spoilers if you want to. We'll mark it. What were your thoughts just watching the film? Like, obviously there's one particular death that's very, very famous now. What are your thoughts just post watching the movie?
Well, it was weird. I've seen it twice. Um, my brother and his fiance and my son and his wife, they all saw it before me. They saw it, early access. So I got the word on that. Um, I saw it at an event. Andrea Pavlovic and Ry Barrett and I were there with the editor. We went to Governor's Island in New York City, and it was an outdoor screening, and it was
Oh,
sold out, which was
Nice.
really cool. So I got to see it with the horror community, which is very
okay.
different than seeing in a movie theater with six of your
Mhm.
closest friends, and they're just like, "Oh my God, Lauren," like that. Where did you take us to? Um, but that was a cool experience to see it with the audience. And when I was watching it and the whole ambiance of the movie, you feel like you're in the woods. I mean, I
Yeah.
live in the woods. All right. So, I mean, I do trail running. That's how I busted my ribs a couple of weeks ago. But I do
Oh,
trail
geez.
running, and I know how creepy it is to be alone in the woods, if I don't have my other dogs with me. And it's creepy. And I felt like Chris Nash really captured that creepiness. And when I'm watching it, my first thought, to be a little bit more succinct in the answer, was, now I see why he directed me the way he did, because
Mm.
I would have stood out like a smelly piece of poop at the end of that movie.